Jacob and I were in a business marriage. He came from money, I came from money. We both wanted more, so here we are. 3 months into this marriage, though, I've hit a small snag. I think I might be falling for Jacob. It's totally normal, I suppose. After all, with a face like his, one glance, and you're a goner, it's hard not to fall. That it took me 3 months to probably say a lot about my willpower. It's also a bit of a blessing. A marriage with some feelings is bound to last longer than one without. But we have a prenup. Actually, we have quite a few. With families like ours, the number of documents about asset division was practically endless, enough to make my hands sore from signing. But the one that matters to me is the private agreement Jacob and I made, the one about how we'd live together. Jacob's demands were simple: be a decent wife. As for my rules, I had just 3. 1. Keep your social circle simple. 2. Stay healthy. 3. Talk only about money, not feelings. When I signed it, I was confident I could still live my carefree, independent life even while married. Turns out, I'm the one breaking the rules by catching feelings. How ironic. Being a sucker for a pretty face is dangerous. Ever since I realized I had feelings for Jacob, things between us have been a little awkward. I can't help sneaking glances at him. We used to do our own thing at home in peace, him poring over company reports, me busy with my skincare routine. But now I can't focus. When he's in his study, I find myself taking him plates of fruit or cups of coffee. Jacob takes off his gold-rimmed glasses, rubs his temples, and looks up at me. Need something? No, I deny quickly, only to add, well, actually. Yes, go ahead. He leans back, reaches for the coffee I've brought him, takes a sip and frowns. What's wrong? Not your taste. I ask. Too sweet, he replies. That's odd, I didn't add much sugar. Under his expectant gaze, I finally get to the point. I want to work at your company. Just find me a position. This was my friend Janet's suggestion. Shopping and tea aren't exactly the way to a workaholic husband's heart. To make Jacob fall for me, I'd have to be in his sight 247, not just at night, but during the day too. So I volunteered. What about as your secretary? Jacob seemed taken aback and responded bluntly, secretary's a no-go. I couldn't help but pout. Fine, you can do odd jobs in the secretarial office, he offered as a compromise. Fine, odd jobs it is. At least it's a foot in the door. Soon, I officially became an employee in the general manager's office at Sunset Group. Holding my new ID badge, I couldn't help but smile. My desk was just a wall away from Jacob's office, the perfect setup for staying right under his nose. My excitement didn't last long, though, as I quickly noticed an issue. Only those summoned could enter the GM's office, and Jacob hardly ever came into ours. If he needed someone, he'd just call. By the end of the day, I hadn't even seen his shadow. At this rate, how long would it take to get my workaholic husband's attention? I complained to Janet, who tried to keep me grounded. Other people get called because they have real work. You haven't so much as touched a single file all day. You think Jacob's gonna call just to flirt? The word flirt made me blush. I huffed. If he dares to call, I'll dare to flirt with him. No sooner had I said this than Jacob actually called me. The phone rang, and his smooth, icy voice came through. Bring me a cup of coffee. Click. He hung up before I could respond. Not much time for flirting there. Gritting my teeth, I muttered a few choice words, but obediently went to the break room to make his coffee. When I knocked and entered, I said politely, General Manager, here's your coffee. Leave it there, he said with a slight nod. I strolled over slowly, sneaking a glance in his direction. He sat behind a large desk, backed by a wall of bookshelves. Leaning over, he gripped a gold-trimmed pen, sketching something on paper. His 3-piece suit was impeccably tailored, and his navy-striped tie was the one I tied for him this morning before he left. I placed the coffee by his hand, and as he leaned back, he looked up at me. Settling in all right? A little bored, I admitted. I thought you'd prefer a quieter job. I met his gaze. I'd rather stay busy. Ideally, busy in a way that keeps me right here in front of you, I thought. Understood, he nodded. My workload increased noticeably suddenly. Delivering files and coffee were my designated duties. Official gopher was my new title, but I didn't mind. It gave me plenty of chances to make my presence known to Jacob. During afternoon breaks, I also won over my colleagues with treats and tea, securing my place in the office gossip circle. One afternoon, as I stirred my tea, someone teased, "Riley, tell us, what did you feel the first time you saw the boss?" I gave a faint smile. A bit mesmerized. And that was the truth. The first time I met Jacob was at my father's birthday party. He arrived fashionably late, jacket slung over one arm, wearing just a vest over his shirt, with a slim silver chain glinting at his chest and his hair slightly tousled. A sudden gust of wind swept his bangs aside, revealing his sharp brow. When he looked up, his gaze was so dazzling it seemed to outshine the whole party. That face alone could silence a room. And nobody remembered he was late as he gracefully made his rounds. "Don't get your hopes up," a colleague threw an arm over my shoulder. "The boss is married." "Really?" I feigned surprise, just the right touch of innocence. Though Jacob's marriage to the heiress of Century Group was public, no one realized that heiress was me. My parents had done their best to protect my privacy, so I could grow up with some semblance of normalcy. Ever since he got married 3 months ago, the boss hasn't stayed late even once. He used to be such a workaholic. He'd make 48 hours out of a day if he could. I blinked, wanting to point out that while Jacob might not work late at the office, he still did plenty of overtime at home. "Typical case of choosing love over ambition," another colleague agreed. Someone else raised a brow. "We're convinced he's totally in love with his wife. Why else would he suddenly leave work on time every day? Must be eager to get home to her." They were getting a bit too imaginative. The reality was his wife was clocking in every day at the office, just to try to get closer to him. To speed things up with Jacob, I started putting extra effort into my outfits. Slowly but surely, my wardrobe was filling with the finest workwear from top brands, each piece carefully chosen for the subtle allure. Every day, I wore a new look, strutting past Jacob in my best attempt to turn his head. But he remained infuriatingly unfazed. That poker face stayed glued in place, his workaholic mindset unshaken. Not a single extra glance in my direction. Annoyed, I dragged Janet out for drinks. When she saw my outfit, she gave a low whistle, shaking her head in amazement. "I'm telling you, Jacob's willpower must be ironclad. You're a total knockout. And he doesn't even blink. Not even a little." She snorted. "Is something wrong with him? If it were me, I'd have pounced ages ago." Her joke made me laugh, and I swatted her playfully. "Do you think maybe he likes men?" "Not that I've heard," said my other friend Luna, considering the question. "If he did, I'm sure we'd have heard some rumors." I nodded, pouting in frustration. Janet slung an arm around my shoulder. "Maybe you need to go on the offensive. If you really like him, just chase him. Who cares who makes the first move, as long as it works out in the end?" "Absolutely not," I replied, feigning righteous indignation. As they say, no one undresses themselves in bed, and no man of mine is going to be the one I have to chase. Luna laughed. "What twisted logic?" I laughed too. "Honestly, it's just a matter of pride. Before we married, we had everything laid out, no emotions, just a business deal. It's only been 3 months, and if I start throwing myself at him, how would I ever hold my head up in front of Jacob? No, it has to be him who makes the first move." Luna swirled her wine and suggested, "Why don't we pretend you're drunk and see what he does?" I caught on immediately, nodding with enthusiasm. Resting my chin on my hand, I watched as Luna called Jacob, claiming that I'd had too much to drink and was causing a scene, and asked him to come pick me up at the bar. He simply replied, "All right." While waiting for Jacob, a thought struck me. What if he sends the driver? Luna shook her head. "Then we'll know he's not worth it." I wholeheartedly agreed. While we waited, I added a slight blush to my cheeks, and a dewy look to my eyes, just enough to mimic a tipsy glow. The second Luna's phone rang, I slumped over the table, glancing up to see Jacob striding into the bar. He must have just showered. His hair was slightly damp, and instead of his usual suit, he was in casual, comfy clothes, walking towards us in slippers, phone still in hand. Feigning a dazed look, I slouched into him as he pulled me into his arms, asking Luna, "Why did she drink so much?" "She's probably dealing with something," Luna replied. Her grave, almost pitying tone nearly made me laugh. But I held back, wrapping my arms around Jacob's neck and breathing softly. I felt his hand tighten around my waist, a slight shiver running through him as my breath touched his neck. He cleared his throat, then turned to Luna. Are you all right? Need a ride home first? Luna shook her head. No need. My boyfriend's coming to pick me up. All right, then we'll wait until he arrives, Jacob said. When Luna's boyfriend finally arrived, Jacob requested a blanket, wrapped it around my waist, then bent down and lifted me in his arms, carrying me out. I nestled against his neck, remembering our little plan, and whined softly. Put me down. I still want to drink. He froze for a moment, his whole body tensing, jaw clenched as he replied coolly. Absolutely not. His tone was icy. I huffed seriously. I was acting cute, and that's his response? Clearly he wasn't into me. I squirmed, trying to get down, but he held on tight, carrying me out of the bar. By the time we reached the door, he was practically dragging me. Maybe he'd had enough, because he pressed me against the wall, hands firmly gripping my waist, his breath ragged as he stared me down. I turned my head away, unwilling to meet his gaze. He grabbed my chin, turning my face back to him, and spoke, each word sharp and clear. From now on, no more drinking like this. I didn't respond, just looked at him. My gaze slid over his sharp brows, high nose, and lips that looked unbelievably kissable. Why were they so red? Suddenly, his Adam's apple bobbed slightly, and his gaze turned intense, almost predatory. In that moment, I understood. This man definitely doesn't like men. After that night at the bar, things hadn't exactly taken off with Jacob. Still, I was feeling optimistic. After all, it was like he had open for pursuit written across his forehead. But before I could make a move on Jacob, I ended up inadvertently charming one of his colleagues instead. Jacob had 2 male assistants, one married, and one single who accompanied him on most business trips. Somehow, the single one had taken a sudden interest in me. I was sure I hadn't done anything to encourage him. In fact, I'd barely exchanged 2 words with him. But recently, he kept popping up with little gifts, trying to strike up conversations, even blushing whenever we made eye contact. It's like they say, the flower you nurture doesn't bloom, but the wild one grows lush without effort. Not wanting to deal with unnecessary trouble, I slipped on my wedding ring at work the next day, subtly signaling that I was, indeed, married. In the midst of my busy days, the time came to celebrate Jacob's grandfather's 80th birthday. The celebration was held in the grand hall of their old family residence. Jacob and I arrived early, hand in hand, playing the part of a devoted newlywed couple, mingling with each guest as they came to pay their respects. After several rounds of toasts, Jacob leaned close to my ear. Are you holding up okay? Truthfully, I was fine. But I decided to play coy. Just a little tired. Then take a break. He took the glass from my hand, water disguised as wine, and said, It's mostly over. I can handle the rest. I looked up at him. A good wife wouldn't disappear on her husband, you know. He laughed softly. Tonight, you're more than just good. Pleased with his answer, I slipped off to the lounge, kicking off my heels and rubbing my aching calves. 12-centimeter heels really aren't meant for human feet. After a short rest, I touched up my makeup, put my stilts back on, and nearly collided with an old childhood friend, Henry. I pretended not to notice him and walked right past. He quickly caught up, an eager smile on his face. What's this? Pretending not to know me after all these years? I crossed my arms, looking him over. Do we know each other that well? He laughed. Didn't we grow up together? So where were you for my wedding? Some friend you are. He explained. I was abroad and really couldn't make it. I owe you an apology, all right? Tell me what I can do to make it up to you. I gave him a little scowl. Sure, I was still a bit annoyed, but since he was apologizing so earnestly, I decided to let him sweat it out. After a few back and forths, we slipped back into our usual rhythm. As we strolled back toward the banquet hall, he turned to me and said, Jacob must be pretty pleased to have married you. What do you mean by that? Marrying the one he's always liked, doesn't that make him happy? Wait, what? He froze for a moment. You didn't know? The look on his face said it all. He'd let something slip. In that moment I caught on. You mean Jacob has liked me all along? I didn't say anything. He slapped a hand over his mouth. What's that supposed to mean? I fixed him with a pretend glare. After a moment of hesitation, he caved. Yes, but don't tell him I told you. As he spoke, I felt like I was hearing a completely different version of events. Apparently, Jacob had always had a crush on me, and even our arranged marriage had been his doing. That sneaky devil. No wonder he'd walk around half-dressed after a shower, flashing just enough abs to get my attention. He'd been trying to reel me in all along. He'd been baiting me this whole time. And here I was, falling for his tricks, thinking I liked him, and even plotting to seduce him. Talk about falling into his trap. I took a deep breath, steadying myself, and once I'd calmed down, I returned to the hall. Inside, the guests were still mingling, toasting and chatting. Jacob stood by his grandfather, facing away from me, holding a glass as he exchanged greetings with the well-wishers. Broad-shouldered and impossibly handsome, even from behind. I called out sweetly, honey. He froze, his shoulders stiffening, even spilling a bit of his drink. Biting back a smile, I hurried over, thinking to myself, so you wanted to reel me in? Well, let's see who ends up reeling whom from now on. In all these months of marriage, I'd never once called Jacob husband. Usually, I'd just use his name, or skip any title altogether. But that first husband hit him like a truck. It took him a long minute to snap out of it. He kept greeting guests, but his face had frozen in place. His nods and smiles looked mechanical, and every so often he'd glance back at me, hiding a sly smile. I tilted my head and threw him a wink. He quickly averted his gaze, that flustered look on his face like he was barely holding it together. Oh, this was too good. When the last group of guests moved on, he pulled me to a quiet corner, and lowering his voice asked, "What exactly was that just now?" "I was just showing you some love," I replied innocently. "Wouldn't Grandpa be thrilled to see us acting all affectionate?" I raised an eyebrow at him. "Or do you not like it?" He cleared his throat, looking away. "I just wasn't prepared." "You'll get used to it," I replied smoothly, looping my arm through his. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught his expression, and pushing it a little further, cooed, "Baby?" He responded with a deadpan look. I huffed quietly, like I didn't notice he was secretly thrilled. Finding out Jacob had always had a crush on me made me realize his poker face was just a cover. Behind it lay all those hidden feelings he'd been holding back. As usual, I brought him coffee, and seeing his overly serious face, I couldn't resist messing with him. "Baby, here's your coffee." His pen slipped, leaving a dark streak across the paper. He looked at me, struggling to keep a straight face. "Don't call me that at work." "All right," I replied, all sweetness, nudging him. "Come on, have a taste." He picked up the cup, starting to drink. I didn't leave, leaning against his desk with my chin propped on my hands, watching him. 1 second, 2 seconds, by the 5th he was visibly fidgeting. What is it?" I held back a laugh. "Really? Only 5 seconds?" Slowly, I shook my head, pretending to notice something new. "Where are your glasses today?" They were poking my lashes. He replied, "And my eyes aren't tired right now." Switching to a teasing tone, I said, "But you look so handsome with them on." "Oh." He barely reacted, giving a faint, dismissive nod as he took another sip of coffee. Later, when I returned to drop off some files, there he was with those gold-rimmed glasses, his straight nose lowered over the paperwork. The whole serious, buttoned-up look had this dangerous edge to it. Damn it. Even though I knew he was baiting me, I couldn't help but fall for it. Mentally chanting clear mind, I set the documents on his desk. "Henry's treating us tonight, so I won't be home for dinner." He turned, giving me a once-over. "Wouldn't you rather go home and change first?" A white blouse, gray pencil skirt, and nude heels weren't exactly friend-meet-up material. So I nodded. He added, "Let's head back together. My driver left early today for family matters." I hesitated. "But if anyone sees you getting into my car, it'll look obvious." He was quick to offer a compromise. "I'll hop in at the street corner." I still wavered. Then after a pause he softened his tone, gave me a little wink and said, "My darling wife, take me with you, won't you?" "Oh, come on." Pulling the charm card. I caved immediately. In the end, he drove me home, then took me to the gathering, where Henry and the others enthusiastically invited him to stay. After several polite refusals, he finally gave in and joined us for dinner. Watching the whole scene play out, I thought to myself, man, if anyone deserves an Oscar, it's you. The get-together was held at Henry's family hotel. We found a round table and settled in for dinner, with Jacob seated to my right. After catching him glancing at my waist for the umpteenth time, I could hardly focus on eating. I was holding back laughter. I tend to dress for comfort at friend gatherings, and today was no exception. A simple white t-shirt and wide-leg pants. The shirt wasn't especially short, but every time I reached for a dish, my elbow lifted my shoulder, causing the hem to ride up. A little lift here. A flash there. My waist kept peeking out. Seeing him so fixated, I decided to have a little fun and tied a knot in the shirt at my left side, making it look slimmer and revealing more waist. A 2-for-1 win. Before long, Jacob leaned close, whispering, "Aren't you cold?" Stifling a laugh, I shook my head. Nope. I thought, oh, so you're allowed to flaunt your abs in front of me, but I can't show a little waist. Let's call this taste of your own medicine. He persisted though. I've got a jacket in the car. If you're cold, I'll go grab it for you. Amused, I gave him a look, but before I could answer, a playful voice chimed in. Hey lovebirds, what are you two whispering about? Care to share with the table? I glanced over. It was Mike, the group's resident playboy. He'd tried to hit on me once, but I wasn't interested. He switched girlfriends more often than outfits. I shot back. You want to hear our private conversation? Aren't you embarrassed? Not in the slightest. Who here wouldn't want to hear it? He grinned, then added, seriously though, such a beauty. How did Jacob manage to win you over? Come on Jacob, share your secrets. I was about to put him in his place when Henry cut in first. Mike, do you really think you're on Jacob's level? Maybe start by sorting out your own mess. Henry must have had a few too many drinks. Normally, he'd be far more tactful. Tonight though, he was blunt and unfiltered. Mike shrugged lazily. I might not be, but I'm sure there's someone here who is, right? Henry didn't miss a beat. No one at this table holds a candle to Jacob. Getting more fired up, he continued. Jacob's been in love with Riley for years. That's the real deal. You all with your casual flings wouldn't understand. As he went on, I found myself stuck on one thought. Jacob's longtime crush on me had just been exposed. I glanced over at Jacob, only to see him looking back, a mix of nerves and tension in his eyes. I swallowed, unsure what to say, when Henry suddenly turned to me, asking, Isn't that right, Riley? What are you talking about? I hadn't even been listening, but with everyone staring, I had no choice but to nod vaguely. See, I told you, Henry said proudly. Jacob's hand suddenly wrapped around my wrist, warm and firm, as he silently pulled me out of the private room. I trailed after him, dazed. Had Henry really said anything he shouldn't have? In the lounge area between private rooms, Jacob opened one of the doors, tugged me inside, locked it, and cornered me against the wall with his arms. He looked down at me, his eyes dark and intense, like ink that wouldn't fade. In the thick tension, I felt an inexplicable shiver, instinctively drawing my shoulders in. With a rough voice he asked, So you knew I liked you all along? Still processing, I mumbled. I only found out on Grandpa's birthday. His gaze grew even more intense. Just as I considered breaking the silence to ease the tension, he lifted my chin and, without a word, leaned in, his lips capturing mine in a deep kiss. My eyes went wide in shock. After a few seconds, I cursed inwardly. What's gotten into him? After the kiss, I couldn't bear the thought of returning to the private room. My lips were red, my legs felt weak, and my clothes were a mess. Jacob went back to grab my bag, and I had no clue how he explained things to the group. Taking my hand with a smirk, he said, All sorted. Still dazed, I followed him home. Once we arrived, before I could even sit down, Jacob took my hand and led me upstairs, turning left into my room. As soon as we entered, he pushed me onto the single sofa and leaned down to kiss me again. I was feeling overwhelmed and quickly pushed him away, saying, Wait, we should really talk first. He paused for a moment, then nodded and grabbed a small stool to sit beside me. I asked, So, did you arrange our marriage? He nodded slowly. I chuckled, When did you start liking me? He replied, Back in high school. I was confused, but we didn't even know each other then. He responded, "You just didn't know me." I sensed a hint of grievance in his tone. Curious, I asked, "Why didn't you pursue me back then?" Jacob answered candidly, "I felt it was out of my league." I suddenly remembered that the Sunset Group had only recently grown successful. Their family was on the rise while ours was struggling. This marriage was meant to solidify a major partnership, and we were benefiting from their success. I mumbled, "You could have mentioned that after the wedding." "Prenup," he replied. He laughed. "What if I confessed my feelings and you wanted a divorce? How would I defend myself?" I thought, I wouldn't be that harsh. In fact, I hadn't been happy with the prenup for a while. So I casually suggested, "Let's draft a new one." He nodded, sure. It seemed he was prepared. He quickly brought out paper and a pen. As he started writing, he paused a few times, looking at me. I said, "Why are you staring? Write down your demands." He replied, "I don't have any demands, I just want you." Is he always this smooth? Has he suddenly become so insightful? I shot him a playful glare, took the pen, and began listing my 8 demands. No lying to me, no scolding me, no hiding things from me. Looking at the page filled with my handwriting, I said, "Let's just call this the wife's rules." Jacob nodded, "That works too." He took the agreement from me and asked, "Should I sign here?" His calm demeanor left me a bit stunned. I spread my fingers over the paper and asked, "Are you sure you don't want to think it over?" He signed it decisively, looking at me. "You have no idea how long I've waited for this day. That charming man knows how to speak." I laughed and planted a quick kiss on his cheek. With the agreement finalized, I remembered his cold demeanor from earlier and decided it was time to settle the score. First point. Why do you complain about the coffee I made? I hardly put in any sugar. I tasted it secretly. It's not too sweet at all. He replied, "The coffee you make tastes like syrup to me." All right, I'll let that slide. Second point. Why do I only get to run errands in the secretary's office? Why can't I be your secretary? You clearly look down on me. You're mistaken, he said. If you were really my secretary, I wouldn't be able to work properly. All I think about is you. That's my issue. All right, I'll let that one pass too. I was counting on my fingers to list more of his faults, like his late-night working habits, when he suddenly leaned in, pinning me down, and murmured, "Can I stay over tonight?" I huffed and kicked him away. "No way. Go back to your room and work." It was my first day back at work after getting married. Jacob insisted on coming to the office with me, but I flatly refused. What a joke. I definitely didn't want to reveal our relationship. If my colleagues found out, I'd be the center of gossip in the break room. While I was working, the intercom buzzed. I picked it up and asked, "Does Mr. Jacob want coffee?" He replied, "No, I miss you." Luna was right. This man really did flirt over the intercom. Embarrassed under everyone's watchful eyes, I tried to keep my tone serious. "Which document should I bring to you?" He said, "I missed you so much that I accidentally signed a document with your name." I covered my mouth and whispered, "Jacob." He suddenly laughed, his voice rich and inviting, like fine wine flowing through my heart. For some reason, I felt a surge of sweetness and smiled. He added, "There's a meeting at 10. You should come to take the minutes." "Okay," I replied, trying to keep it professional. He continued, "Honestly, I just want to see you. Meetings are so boring. Looking at you makes it a bit better." I felt like scolding him, but didn't want to attract attention, so I held back, casually grabbing a document from my desk and knocking on Jacob's office door as I entered. He seemed to be waiting for me, opening his arms as if to welcome me. I placed the document on his desk and pretended to be stern. "Be serious during work hours." He pulled me onto his lap, whispering in my ear, "I've wanted to be unprofessional for a long time." With the time and place being so inappropriate, I quickly tried to shift the conversation back. "Where's your special assistant, Daniel? I haven't seen him around lately." "He's on a business trip," he replied. I frowned. It seems like he's always on a business trip these days. In the past, it was Daniel and Jay who alternated trips. Then I realized, "You know something, don't you?" He responded confidently, "Well, he has a crush on you." I hit him playfully on the chest. "I've already dealt with that." "Not quite," he said. "There's a project out of province that's advancing. I'll transfer him there as the project lead." That sounded like a promotion, so I dropped the subject. But then Jacob suddenly got jealous and declared, "How dare you mention another man? I'm going to punish you." He wrapped his arms around my waist and began kissing my ear softly. "What kind of punishment is this? You just want to kiss me." After what felt like a long moment of intimacy, I finally left his office, feeling quite embarrassed. Keeping my head down and using the document to shield my forehead as I hurried back to my desk like a guilty thief. Perhaps because I did a good job taking minutes at the last meeting. From then on, Jacob always insisted I join for meetings. On Monday morning, we had a company meeting. After spending the entire weekend with Jacob, I struggled to get out of bed on Monday feeling tired and sore. At 10, I stifled a yawn and walked into the meeting room with everyone else. The department heads took turns speaking, discussing progress. I took notes, but despite my efforts to stay focused, sleepiness kept creeping in. The project manager's voice was so soothing. It sounded just like my high school history teacher, and I always dozed off during his class. Now it was even harder to keep my eyes open. Suddenly my head dropped as I dozed off, only to jerk awake. I heard a soft chuckle beside me. Turning, I saw Jacob, leisurely watching me. I shot him a glare. "What are you looking at?" If it weren't for him, I wouldn't be suffering like this. He scribbled something on a piece of paper and slid it in front of me. I glanced up and saw it read, "Watch your drool." "No way?" I hurriedly wiped my mouth with my hand. There was no drool. My mouth was perfectly clean. "He's teasing me." I glared at him again. He laughed, his smile bright and annoyingly charming. Just then, the project manager finished speaking, and it was Jacob's turn. He adjusted the microphone, cleared his throat, and said, "Well, about that drool." The room fell silent. I remembered how he had just teased me and couldn't help but burst out laughing. Finally, "It's your turn to be embarrassed." Jacob's expression turned serious as he looked at me with amusement. "Riley, repeat what you just said 10 times. No one wants to know what it feels like to repeat drool 10 times. And I certainly don't want to relive it." I just felt utterly humiliated. That day, my drool incident became the talk of the company forum and group chat. Why did the boss suddenly bring up drool in the meeting? Does drool mean what I think it does? Can someone tell me what it feels like to say drool 10 times in front of the boss? Oh my God, this is so embarrassing. The threads rotated, topics changed, but everything revolved around drool, and I became the center of attention in the company. I've never felt this embarrassed in my life. I decided to ignore Jacob. No matter how much he begged, I absolutely refused to talk to him. I declared a one-sided Cold War for the day. That night, Jacob sneaked into my room. I turned away, focusing on washing my face, not even glancing at him. To my surprise, he suddenly knelt at my feet and said, "Wife, I was wrong." I was a bit taken aback, but still didn't plan on looking at him. He handed me a piece of paper, revealing the prenuptial agreement. He said I added a new clause. "Wife, see if you like it." I glanced at it. "You cannot embarrass your wife in public." That's acceptable, but I still wasn't ready to forgive him. My gaze fell on the 4 big words above the agreement, "Wife's rules." I decided to give him a taste of his own medicine and said firmly, "Jacob, write wife's rules 10 times. He looked up and asked, "If I write it, will you stop being mad?" I didn't respond, but I was already starting to calm down. He suggested, "How about you film me writing it and post it on the company intranet? Then we'll both be embarrassed together." I wasn't falling for that. "You just want to make it public, don't you?" He replied as if it were obvious, "We're married. Why shouldn't we go public?" The issue with going public was me. I wasn't really keen on it. If I made my relationship with Jacob public, I wouldn't have the same freedom at work. The tables turned, he coaxed me, and then I coaxed him. But Jacob was easy to please. A few kisses could resolve anything. It turned into a sweet, sticky night. Before I knew it, I had been at Sunset Group for over 2 months. I had made some clever and lovely colleagues, and my relationship with Jacob had also blossomed. That night, as Jacob and I lay in bed arguing about who had been better at flirting, my phone suddenly chimed. I snapped, "I'll deal with you later." The message was from a close colleague, Lily, along with a chat log. "Lily, Riley, is this true? Lily, I don't think you're that kind of person, but someone took photos. Lily, Should you clarify in the company group chat? I opened the chat log and saw several photos. They showed Jacob by the corner with my car, me with his car, him kissing me, and me kissing him, all captured in sweet moments among the traffic. I kicked Jacob. This is all your fault for exposing us. He leaned over, wrapping his arm around my shoulder to look at the chat log with me. The comments that followed were quite scandalous. They claimed I intentionally dressed provocatively every day to attract him, and that I appeared innocent on the surface while secretly being a wealthy man's mistress. His expression turned serious in an instant as he took his phone and said, "I'll send someone to investigate this. I'll handle it. Forget it. Let's just go public," I replied. The best way to resolve this was to let everyone know we were a couple, and there was nothing inappropriate between us. He looked at me, pulled out our marriage certificate from under his pillow, and said, "I'll make it public right now." I suspected he had been waiting for this moment for a while. Otherwise, why would he have kept the marriage certificate under his pillow? He took a photo of it, and I thought he was going to post it on social media. So I didn't pay much attention and started replying to Lily's messages. "Riley, actually I'm the boss's wife." "Lily what?" "Lily." Now I'm feeling a bit flustered. I chuckled and snapped a picture of Jacob's marriage certificate to send to her. "Riley, now do you believe me?" "Lily, oh my God." "Lily, the boss's wife is actually right beside me." After chatting for a while, she suddenly asked me, "Do you want me to post this photo in the group to clarify?" I replied sure. She then sent me a message, "Never mind, the boss has already clarified it himself," accompanied by a screenshot. I opened it stunned for a moment. This man actually posted a picture of our marriage certificate on the company intranet. Above a bunch of serious proposals, documents, announcements, and notices was our marriage certificate, standing out like a sore thumb. Oh my God, how embarrassing. For the first time in my life, I didn't want to go to work. But thinking about my lovely colleagues, I managed to crawl out of bed. I treated this as my last day at the office, planning to say my goodbyes. Jacob held me close the entire way, reassuring me with comments like, "What's the big deal? We're a legally married couple. What's wrong with showing a little love?" It's true that there's nothing wrong with a legally married couple expressing affection. But who does that on the company intranet? It just makes him look so important as the general manager. As Jacob's car pulled into the company parking lot, we took the president's private elevator straight to the office door. I thought this would help me avoid any teasing from my colleagues, but as soon as the elevator doors opened, I was met with a bright red banner at the entrance to the general manager's office, warmly welcoming the boss's wife to inspect the general manager's office. It was too funny. Jacob burst out laughing beside me. He patted my shoulder, chuckling, "Boss's wife, go on in and inspect the work." I struggled to hold back my embarrassment as I walked step by step into the office, greeted by enthusiastic cheers and applause from my colleagues. It was awkward but not as bad as I had imagined. I finally made it to my desk and sat down slowly. Throughout the morning, my colleagues were friendly. They didn't avoid the topic of the boss's wife, but they didn't overdo it either. It wasn't the terrifying scene I had feared. Everything was quite pleasant. Except for Jacob. This guy had a nerve. He called up other colleagues on the internal phone, saying things like, "Let your boss's wife come in to deliver a document." I felt my face flush and stormed into his office to confront him, declaring I wouldn't be having lunch with him. Lunch was spent in the company cafeteria with my colleagues. I was feeling a bit low, but a small gift turned my mood around. After serving my meal, the cafeteria lady handed me a lovely paper bag with a smile, saying, "This is from the boss's wife. Thank her." I was taken aback, my voice barely a whisper. "Thank you, boss's wife?" Nearby, Lily and a few colleagues who were in the loop burst into laughter. I shot them a glare, trying to shake off that curling up feeling, took the paper bag, and followed them to the table to eat. Each person received a gift bag. Inside were the latest gadgets, luxury skincare products, and assorted candies and chocolates perfect for everyone. I had no idea. It must have been Jacob's doing. During lunch, several colleagues recognized me and came over with beaming smiles, always ending with a "Thank you, boss's wife." It was quite a unique and special experience at work. In the afternoon, I went to the HR office to resign, and they fast-tracked my exit. It was all wrapped up in just a few minutes. I felt light as a feather without a position as I clicked my heels toward Jacob's office. I pushed open the door and walked in. Jacob was sitting behind his large desk and seeing me teased. "What's up with your secretary? Doesn't she knock before entering?" I replied proudly, "I'm the boss's wife now." "Oh," he said. "Then what brings the boss's wife here?" I smiled and moved closer. "Just checking if you're hiding any little lovers." He pulled me onto his lap, saying, "Aren't you one?" "How cheeky." I playfully hit him. Glancing at the clutter of documents on his desk, I complained, "When are you going to finish work?" He quickly caught on. "Does the boss's wife have plans?" I patted my wallet and said, "You just got paid. I'll treat you to dinner." He eagerly replied, "Then I better get back to work. I can't let the boss's wife down." I stayed with Jacob at work until 6 in the evening. Finally, he finished up, and we held hands as we walked down to the parking lot together. As the car pulled away from the Sunset Group, I looked at the sky painted with the hues of sunset and reflected on this short journey of joining the company. I had landed a perfect husband. How could that not be worth it? The end.